Hello, it's Kick-Ass Woman time. I'm Jenny Dye, author of the Bragton Chronicles. When I'm not writing, I love to learn about kick-ass women in history. I'm here today to tell you about one of them. But, I'm not going to tell you who the story is about for a few minutes. The reason? You wouldn't believe me anyway if I told you right away. I was hard-pressed to believe it myself when I first learned it. Let's start this story when little Marguerite was only 3 years old. That was when her daddy packed a suitcase and sent her and her 4-year-old brother alone on the train to live with his mother. She was scared and she didn't want to go, but she didn't have a choice. 4 years later, with no notice, her father returned to usher the kids back to his estranged wife. Well, Marguerite didn't want to do that either. She'd settled in with her grandmother and it was the only home she really knew. But again, she didn't have a choice. 1 year later, at age 8, Marguerite was sexually abused by her mother's boyfriend. After confiding in her brother what he'd done to her, he was the one who told the family how his sister had been violated. The boyfriend spent only 1 day in jail. However, he was found beaten to death just days after his release. In spite of her own pain, little Marguerite was horrified. After that incident, when they were returned to their grandmother yet again, Marguerite didn't protest. She couldn't. The trauma of all that had happened was simply too much for the little girl to handle. Marguerite bottled up her pain and simply quit speaking. She thought if she spoke, her mouth would just issue out something that would kill people randomly, so it was better not to talk. Nearly 5 years would pass before a word would escape her lips, with the exception of her beloved brother Bailey. She had learned way too much about how cruel life can be. The hope had been crushed from her. But was it really crushed? Or was it simply lying dormant until someone gave her the courage to hope again? Let's see what happened when she was 15. It was a close friend and teacher that gave Marguerite the courage to begin to hope again. And yes, this teacher was a kick-ass woman too, but the story isn't about her. This teacher believed in Marguerite and simply loved her. She introduced her to classic literature and slowly coaxed her to speak again. I don't know about you, but I can imagine the conflict in Marguerite's soul as she struggled to find her voice again. Can't you just see the teacher having conversations while Marguerite just sat and watched her? Can't you see the emotions racing across her face as she tried to decide if she could really trust this woman? If it would really be safe to come out of her self-imposed shell into what she already knew was a savagely cruel world? Well, the friendship stirred something within the young girl, and she began to open up. The day came when Marguerite spoke again. Can't you just imagine what it must have been like when she opened her mouth and heard her own voice come out of it for the first time in 5 years? She walked out of the darkness and began to hope again, to believe her life could be something different than it had up to that point. Now, her successes were slow and steady in coming, but they occurred between tragedy and heartache that just wouldn't seem to stop. Her life did not immediately become wonderful. She still had many battles to fight and a lot of mountains to climb. You see, Marguerite also had a baby out of wedlock. She had a lover who forced her to work as a prostitute. She married and divorced multiple times, and she lost her son to a kidnapping for a time. Many things happened to her and around her that should have kept this woman from following her dreams. But she didn't let the obstacles stand in her way. She chose to be a kick-ass woman, and she simply kept moving forward. So why am I telling you this story? What makes Marguerite so important? Well, it's time for me to tell you who Marguerite really is. You probably know her by her brother's nickname for Marguerite. He called her Maya. You probably heard of her? Maya Angelou. Are you as surprised as I was? I was absolutely amazed that this icon of grace and wisdom had endured so much tragedy. Her life story is not always easy to hear. It's not as pretty as her acclaimed poetry. It's hard to believe that mute little girl went on to be billed as poet, dancer, producer, historian, playwright, director, best-selling author. She continued to perform in her 80s until shortly before her death at age 86. When she died, she was working on her latest book. Maya's life was far from easy, but it was out of the struggle and pain that she became a kick-ass woman. It was out of her pain and struggles that she found her voice. It was out of her pain and struggles that she gained the wisdom and empathy that poured out of everything she did. Here's the truth. Maya would not be as powerful if she had not had to overcome great pain. She wouldn't be able to impact life so powerfully if she hadn't learned the power of choosing hope over and over again. If she had chosen to be anything less than a kick-ass woman. Any of the things she endured could have made her decide to curl up in a ball and never live life again. Who would have blamed her? Especially those of you listening to me who actually have curled up into a ball. I know, it makes your choice easier when you see other people making the same choice you have. You can all live in misery together. But is that really what you want? I don't believe so, because you're listening to a story about a kick-ass woman. There is something, perhaps buried deep inside you right now, that wants you to live your life differently. There is a part of you that wonders if you can be a kick-ass woman too. Let Maya Angelou's story give you the courage to come out of the darkness and choose to be what you dream about. Will you be as famous as Maya Angelou? Maybe, maybe not. That's not the point. The point is that you can turn your pain into great things. You can let pain become your friend because of all the empathy and passion it allows you to live with once you have overcome it. That is what being a kick-ass woman is all about. That's all for today. Subscribe to my channel below because I'll be adding many more stories of other kick-ass women. If you want to check out my best-selling historical novel series that focuses on some pretty amazing kick-ass women, you can use the link below to buy the first one for just 99 cents. And as long as you're clicking things, I'd appreciate a like if that's true for you. Have a great day, and I'll be back soon.